On a distant alien world, the hall was filled with young cadets waiting for lessons about honor and glory. But what they found was not what they expected, because standing before them was Korath, a veteran soldier, his body marked by scars of wars, long past and his eyes heavy with memories that no one could easily understand. He did not begin with the bold tone of a commander. Instead, he started with a quiet voice, almost as if he was speaking to himself. And the cadets leaned in close to hear him because they sensed something deeper was about to be told. The silence of the room was broken only by his words as he spoke of the first time he had faced humans, and how that moment had changed everything for him forever. He said, "The battlefield had been strange, the air thick with smoke and ash, the ground trembling under the sound of distant bombardments. Yet there was also a strange stillness, as if the land itself was holding its breath, waiting for something terrible to arrive." Korath remembered standing with his unit ready to crush the human forces that dared resist. They had expected weakness. They had expected fear. They had expected surrender. But what came was none of these. He told them of a young human named Jack, a soldier, with no great rank and no famous bloodline, but with a spirit that seemed unbreakable. Jack was cornered, cut off from his squad, and surrounded by Korath's warriors. Yet instead of dropping his weapon, instead of begging for mercy, Jack rushed forward, with a fire in his eyes that even Korath could not forget. He fought like a storm, wild and desperate, but with purpose. Every strike meant to buy just a little more time for the others to escape. He should have fallen quickly, but he did not. His will kept him standing long after his body should have given up. The cadets shifted uneasily as they listened, unable to imagine such defiance. Korath told them that the humans fought not only with their weapons, but with something else, something more dangerous than blades or blasters. They fought with a will to live and to protect each other, and that made them impossible to predict. He remembered the first clash. Clearly the smoke cleared just enough to reveal the humans advancing, not in perfect lines, not with polished armor or shining banners, but with grit and determination. Their clothes torn, their faces streaked with dirt, but their eyes burning with purpose. The aliens had laughed at first, believing these were the final moments of a dying species. But the laughter had soon vanished, replaced by the realization that every human strike was calculated, every retreat was only a lure, and every shout carried the weight of unity. Korath paused in his story, looking at the young cadets. Some of them smiled nervously, thinking, surely this was just exaggeration, but his eyes told them otherwise. He spoke of how Jack and his squad moved like shadows. One moment, they were pinned down; the next, they were behind the alien lines, cutting supply routes, setting traps, striking with precision, and then disappearing again. It was like fighting against the wind, something you could feel but never hold. He told them about the fear that crept into his warriors, the way even the strongest among them began to hesitate, the nights filled with restless sleep, because no one knew if the humans were out there watching, waiting. He described how the humans seemed to turn the very land into their ally. Every hill, every tree, every broken wall became a weapon against his forces. The cadets whispered among themselves in disbelief, but the weight of Korath's tone silenced them quickly. He spoke again of Jack and how he never seemed to back down, even when his body failed him. His determination carried him further than logic should have allowed. Korath admitted that he had once thought courage was just another word soldiers used to hide fear. But after facing humans, he realized courage was something different. It was a force of its own. It was something that turned ordinary people into legends, and that terrified him because legends could not be predicted. Legends could not be broken. As Korath finished his first story, the hall was silent. The cadets no longer thinking of medals or parades, but of smoke-filled skies and a single human who refused to fall. Korath looked at them each in turn, his voice low but firm, and he told them that this was only the beginning, that the stories he carried were not meant to frighten them, but to prepare them for the truth that every soldier who had faced humans carried in their hearts, the truth that no matter how powerful you believed you were, the humans would find a way to make you doubt it. And once doubt took root, the battle was already lost. Korath stood still for a long moment before he spoke again, his voice heavy with memories and his eyes distant, as though he was seeing the battlefields once more. He told the cadets that they had always been trained to believe war was about numbers and weapons and strategies drawn on maps. But when they faced humans, they learned quickly that war could be something else entirely. It could be about how much a soldier refused to give up, no matter how broken the field looked and no matter how hopeless the fight seemed. Korath said he remembered the first time he realized the humans used the land itself as their ally. The ruins of cities and the twisted steel of collapsed towers were not just scars to them, they were tools he spoke of. A woman named Claire, a medic. Not even a frontline fighter, yet she became a nightmare to his unit. She was everywhere, tending to the wounded, turning the broken shells of buildings into shelters, and then somehow into traps for those who thought to storm them. Korath said he had seen her carry soldiers twice her weight, pulling them through fire and smoke. Then moments later she would vanish, only to reappear behind his men with traps laid that cost lives and time. Every ruin that his soldiers thought was safe became a place of fear because they never knew if Claire had passed through it. Leaving dangers behind, her courage was not loud, but it spread like a spark. Every soldier who saw her stand unshaken even under bombardment fought harder and longer. Korath admitted that at first he and his comrades laughed at the sight of humans turning rubble into cover. But their laughter died quickly when the humans held lines that should have broken within minutes. He told the cadets how entire squads disappeared after entering what seemed like empty houses, and how the humans used smoke not only to hide, but to lure the enemy deeper into traps. Korath confessed that he underestimated them. He thought them desperate. But in truth, they were clever, and they adapted faster than anything his army had faced before. He described how Claire saved a boy, barely old enough to fight, dragging him from a burning trench while enemy fire rained down around her, and still she did not stop. Still she held her ground, and in that moment Korath realized the humans did not fight as individuals. They fought as one. Their unity was the real weapon. The cadets shifted uneasily as Korath's words sank in. He told them how his commanders began to grow restless because their great plans crumbled again and again against the unpredictable human tactics. He remembered one night when his patrol walked through a silent street, thinking it safe only for walls to collapse around them, forcing them into the open where hidden human soldiers waited. It was Claire's hand in every one of those traps, her mind and her resolve shaping the battlefield in ways that no alien general could predict. Korath looked at the young faces before him and said that humans fought not only with weapons but with the ground they stood on. They turned ashes into shields and ruins into blades. He remembered how every advance they made was met with resistance, not from great armies, but from small groups, who refused to run, who used everything around them to hold the line. He said that even his veterans began to whisper in the dark that the humans were not soldiers, but something else, something born of the world they called home, a world that taught them to endure storms, to climb mountains, to carve life out of danger itself. He said Claire was the perfect example of that spirit. Not a commander, not a warrior, but someone who refused to let her people fall, and because of her others refused as well. Korath lowered his voice as he spoke of the losses his unit suffered that day, because they thought the humans would retreat easily. Instead, the humans dug in deeper and struck harder. The cadets leaned forward, silent and tense, as he explained that what haunted him most was not the battles themselves, but the way the humans never seemed to doubt they might lose their strength was not in their armor or weapons, but in their refusal to accept defeat. Korath said that facing Claire and the others taught him a truth he had never wanted to believe, that a war against humans was not measured in how many battles you won on paper, but in how much fear they planted in your heart. Once that fear took root, it stayed forever. He finished his words with a warning, telling the cadets that humans could make ruins fight for them, and that when they stood against such an enemy, no map and no weapon would ever guarantee victory. Korath waited until the silence of the room had settled again before continuing, and when he spoke, the tone of his voice carried the weight of nights without sleep and battles that would never fade from memory. He told the cadets that after Claire and the traps of the ruins, he believed he had seen the worst of human cunning. But then came a man named Alex, a captain who commanded his soldiers with a quiet hand and eyes that saw further than most. Korath said that Alex did not waste his strength in reckless charges. Instead, he used patience like a weapon, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And when he did, the results were devastating. Korath described the first time they encountered Alex's tactics. His forces had moved into a dense forest chasing what they thought was a broken human unit. Yet the forest remained strangely quiet, too quiet. He said the air itself seemed to hold danger. Every step forward felt like walking into the unknown. They found abandoned camps left behind, with small fires still burning, as if the humans had been there only moments ago. His men grew uneasy, whispering that eyes were watching them from every shadow, and Korath himself felt the weight of dread. Then, without warning, the attacks began, not from one side but from everywhere at once. Arrows of fire rained from the treetops. Explosives hidden under the soil erupted beneath heavy walkers, and human soldiers appeared only for seconds, striking and vanishing before anyone could aim. Korath said that Alex had turned the forest into a living weapon. His soldiers moved like ghosts, using silence as their shield and the endless trees as their ally. Even when his forces tried to retreat, they found paths blocked by fallen trees and traps that funneled them deeper into the maze. Korath admitted to the cadets that his unit was not defeated by strength alone, but by the fear of never knowing where the humans would appear next. The nights that followed were worse than the battles themselves, because every sound in the dark, every rustle of leaves carried the threat of unseen eyes. He remembered how even hardened veterans could not rest. They stared into the shadows, certain that human soldiers were waiting just beyond reach. Korath told them about the time one of his scouts swore he saw movement only to find nothing but branches swaying in the wind. Yet when they turned back, another patrol had vanished, leaving only silence and the faint smell of smoke. He explained that Alex's brilliance was not in overwhelming force, but in breaking the mind of his enemy, in making every soldier doubt the ground beneath their feet and the darkness around them. Korath spoke of how his commanders grew frustrated, demanding victory, demanding speed, but there was no speed against an enemy that struck and vanished like lightning. He said that Alex never shouted his orders, never boasted of victories. He simply waited, and when the moment came, he acted with cold precision. Korath remembered one night when the forest lit up with fire as hidden charges tore through his lines and human soldiers emerged from the dark, their faces lit by the glow of flames, silent and focused. They did not look like men. They looked like spirits of war, and then they were gone again, leaving only ruin behind. The cadets sat stiff in their seats, shivering at the thought of endless nights filled with fear. Korath told them how his soldiers began to fear sleep itself, because every dream carried the image of sudden attacks and unseen enemies. The humans fought with time itself, stretching battles into endless hunts until the alien army no longer knew if they were the predator or the prey. He said that Alex embodied the human way of war, not with loud speeches but with silence and patience and a relentless drive to make every moment count. He looked at the cadets and reminded them that fear is the most powerful weapon of all, and the humans wielded it better than any species in the galaxy. He ended the story by warning them that when they hear silence in a battlefield, they must never mistake it for safety, because silence was the sound humans used to prepare their strike. And when that strike came, it was already too late. Korath's voice softened slightly as he continued recalling battles that tested every limit of his soldiers, and the cadets leaned in closer, sensing that this memory carried weight heavier than any before. He told them about one of the darkest campaigns the humans had endured and yet refused to yield. He spoke of how his army had pushed the humans back over and over, cutting their supplies and destroying their positions, but the humans never broke. Instead, they adapted and found ways to survive and fight back. It was during one of these desperate times that Korath met Olivia, a young human scout whose courage and determination became the stuff of nightmares for his soldiers. She moved across the battlefield with a grace and speed that seemed impossible. She carried messages and orders across burning fields, crawling through mud and debris while enemy fire streaked overhead. He remembered how she had been struck by shrapnel and yet refused to stop dragging a wounded comrade to safety. And when she finally delivered the message, her body trembled with pain, but her eyes still burned with resolve. Korath said that it was impossible to understand humans from a distance, because they seemed fragile and small. Yet when you saw them act under pressure, you realized they carried a force inside that could turn the tide of any battle. He told the cadets how his army had grown frustrated and desperate the more they destroyed the humans. the more the humans seemed to rise from the ashes with plans more cunning than before. Korath described the battlefield littered with the remnants of destroyed vehicles and collapsed bunkers. Yet everywhere he looked, he saw humans moving with purpose, turning ruins into shields and traps that caught his soldiers unaware. He admitted that his forces had never experienced this kind of tenacity before. Every time they thought they had the advantage, it slipped through their fingers like smoke. He spoke of nights spent chasing human units through ruined towns and fields only to find that their enemies had vanished, as if the ground itself had swallowed them, and then attacked from behind. He said, Olivia had been at the center of these maneuvers, knowing exactly where to place her squad and when to appear. Her small group of scouts could delay entire alien brigades and feed intelligence back to her leaders. He recalled a moment when he and his soldiers thought they had cornered her on a narrow ridge. But before they could strike, she had led them into a trap of fire and hidden explosives that killed many and forced the survivors to retreat. Korath told the cadets how the humans seemed to convert every hardship into advantage, every wound into motivation, and every setback into a lesson. They never forgot what happened and adapted faster than any alien could anticipate. He remembered one day when Olivia led a group to recover supplies under heavy fire, crossing open ground where any human would have fallen. She moved like a shadow, always just out of reach of his soldiers, yet always accomplishing the mission. Her bravery inspired others and terrorized his troops. At the same time, Korath admitted to the cadets that he could not understand such resolve. Humans had an endurance and willingness to sacrifice that went beyond logic and reason. He told them that even after surviving injuries and losses, Olivia would rise again each day more determined than the last, and her actions alone had saved hundreds of human lives and disrupted entire alien operations. Korath spoke of the fear that grew in his units because of the humans' refusal to surrender. They could no longer rely on numbers or strength. They had to anticipate the impossible, and yet the humans found ways to make the impossible routine. He said that watching humans fight was like watching the world itself fight back. Every stone, every wall, every broken machine became a tool for them. The cadets sat in silence, imagining the burning fields and the mud-soaked bodies crawling under fire. And Korath explained that what made humans terrifying was not just their skill or courage, but their ability to inspire and lead each other. No human ever fought alone. Even in the worst conditions, their will to survive and protect one another made them stronger than any army that tried to crush them. He ended his story by warning that no amount of planning could overcome the human spirit, and that every alien who had faced them remembered the dread of knowing that no matter how many they killed, the humans would always find a way to rise again. Korath paused and let the weight of the previous story settle before he spoke again. His voice calm but carrying the chill of memory, he told the cadets that humans did not fight for fame or conquest but for each other, and that truth struck harder than any weapon. He described a young soldier named Ethan, who had stayed behind on a narrow bridge to hold off his pursuers, while his squad escaped. It was clear to everyone that Ethan would not survive. Yet he stood firm, wielding what he could. Against overwhelming numbers, Korath recalled how his soldiers had tried to push forward thinking the human would fall easily. Yet Ethan fought with determination and cleverness beyond what they expected. Every strike measured, every move designed to buy more time for others to get away. He said that as Ethan fell, the bridge still held and hundreds of human soldiers had escaped to fight another day. Korath admitted that what struck him was not the loss of life on his side, but the respect he felt for a human who valued others above himself. He described the fear that spread through his ranks because if one human could inspire such sacrifice, what else were they capable of? He told the cadets that humans had an unshakable loyalty to one another that could not be broken even under the most crushing pressure. He remembered watching humans cheer for one another, even in defeat, and how that cheer spread courage like wildfire, making every soldier ready to face what should have been hopeless odds. Korath spoke of the way humans used every advantage the terrain offered, how they could vanish into forests or hide in ruins, only to appear where least expected. He told them of scouts who mapped every movement of the enemy and then led counterattacks that struck with precision and ruthlessness. He said that humans had patience and cunning combined with a spirit that refused to yield, no matter the cost, and that combination made them unpredictable and dangerous. He told The cadets about the nights of relentless skirmishes when humans would appear out of nowhere, slowing his advances and causing confusion within his own lines. Korath explained that even when humans were wounded or exhausted, they found ways to support each other and complete their mission. They never abandoned a comrade, and that ethic made them far stronger than they appeared on the battlefield. He remembered a time when a group of his soldiers thought they had captured a human unit only to find that the humans had regrouped and counterattacked with such force that the aliens were pushed back and forced to retreat. He said that the humans did not fight for glory but for survival and the survival of their friends, and that spirit was terrifying because it could not be destroyed with bombs or blasters. Korath described how the idea of honor in humans was different from the alien concept. It was not about titles or recognition, but about loyalty and protecting one another even at the cost of one's life. He said that this kind of courage was contagious and the cadets could feel its weight. Just listening to him, he told them that the humans' ability to inspire each other and fight as one made them an army that could not be predicted or defeated easily. His voice grew quieter as he recounted the countless skirmishes where human ingenuity and bravery had turned the tide against superior forces, and how the fear of facing them never left alien soldiers even long after the battle had ended. He said that, after seeing Ethan's sacrifice and the relentless human unity, he understood why the galaxy spoke of them with both fear and admiration. He ended the story by telling the cadets that every human soldier they would encounter carried the same spirit of loyalty and courage, and that underestimating that could mean the end of any alien army. Because humans did not fight alone. They fought together, and that was what made them unstoppable. Korath took a deep breath and looked at the cadets. His eyes heavy with years of battles and memories, he told them that humans had changed the way war was remembered across the galaxy, not just by victories or losses, but by the way they inspired awe and fear. At the same time, he described how every soldier who faced humans carried the memory of relentless courage and unexpected tactics. The cadets listened in silence as Korath recounted the countless battles where humans had refused to surrender. No matter the odds, each encounter leaving alien soldiers shaken by the sheer unpredictability and willpower of their enemies. He spoke of humans whose actions could alter the outcome of entire campaigns with nothing more than courage and quick thinking. He told them that kindness and fury were intertwined in humans, their compassion for one another giving strength to endure suffering, and their anger at injustice giving force to destroy obstacles. Korath remembered standing on battlefields littered with the dead and the wounded and feeling a strange respect mixed with fear, because even in loss the humans rose stronger than before. He told the cadets that no alien soldier could ever underestimate humanity because in their eyes there was always a spark, a refusal to quit that could turn defeat into victory. He spoke of moments where alien commanders thought a battle would be won only to find that a single human action had changed everything and forced entire armies to retreat. He described the fear that never left his unit, the dread of facing humans who might appear anywhere at any time, and yet the admiration that grew alongside it because humans fought not only for themselves, but for each other and for what they believed in. He told the cadets of young soldiers who endured injuries that would have stopped anyone else and yet returned to the fight carrying messages, rescuing comrades and standing where logic said they should have fallen. He said that humans inspired loyalty, not because of orders, but because of example and courage shown in the worst moments. He recalled how even after battles were over, humans would return to help the wounded, rebuild what was broken, and prepare for the next challenge, making it clear that the spirit of humanity was relentless. He explained that the galaxy would whisper of human battles, not as isolated incidents but as legends, because every story carried lessons in courage, endurance, and unity. He told the cadets that to underestimate humans was to risk everything because they could turn ruins into fortresses, weakness into strength, and fear into determination. Korath spoke of how he had learned to respect even the smallest human soldier because the will to act, the drive to protect others, and the refusal to give up could influence the outcome of wars in ways numbers and weapons could not. He said that when humans fought, the battlefield itself seemed to bend to their will, not because they controlled it, but because their spirit forced it to respond to their determination. He looked at the cadets and said that every story he shared was a warning and a lesson that humans were not to be underestimated, that their bravery, unity, and cunning made them a force unlike any other, and that even those who survived encounters with them carried the memory of fear and respect forever. He ended with a quiet statement telling them that the war stories of humans were not just about battles lost or won, but about the enduring power of spirit, and that anyone who faced them would never forget the terror and awe of meeting an enemy who could not be broken, and who fought for each other as fiercely as they fought to survive, leaving the cadets in silence, understanding that humans were not just warriors, but legends in their own right, and that the galaxy would never see anything like them again.